What would happen if you let a bunch of kids go completely unsupervised in a house for one whole week? Well, I can tell you right now that disaster is probably one of the top words on that list. I don't think we need an experiment to tell us that this is probably not a good idea, but it's interesting nonetheless. This is Brainspill, my name is Tank, and today we are talking about the 2009 documentary made called Boys Alone. This being a documentary about 10 children that are left in a house completely to their own devices. No parents, no responsibilities, and well, the outcome I'm sure you can guess. Before we jump in, if you like the video, be sure to subscribe to never miss an upload. The Boys Alone experiment is a British television documentary produced by Channel 4 in 2009, aimed to explore the capabilities and challenges faced by children when left alone without adult supervision. 10 boys ranging in age from 8 to 12 were selected to live together in a house for the duration of 5 days, during which they were required to navigate daily tasks without adult supervision. The main goal here would be to see if the kids in this environment where they had complete freedom would go about living in a sustainable, clean and healthy lifestyle, or if they would run rampant. My guess is that they would already have destroyed the joint by the end of the 5 days, but what the real question is how quickly will they smear shit on the walls whilst being in this house? My guess is not very long. The experiment sought to shed light on the children's abilities to handle conflict resolution, cooperation and decision making in the absence of parental or adult authority. If you've ever read the book The Lord of the Flies, you will know for a fact that kids being left to their own devices is a terrible idea. Let's just hope that the end of this experiment doesn't end like the book, because yeah, things wouldn't be so fun anymore. The house itself was filled with all the essentials the boys would need, but also had many other items, such as toys and games to entertain them to their heart's desire. I do wonder what would happen if there wasn't an adult to say no. Well, I guess we'll find out. Whilst you might imagine that there is some inherent risk in doing this, there were cameras in the house to monitor what was happening at all times, with adult intervention only being needed when there was some form of safety issue. Meaning that, for example, God forbid if there was something like a fire, I always have to choose the worst case scenario, then at least the kids were safe. Also, the kids had the option to call their parents or anyone if they needed to, and they were free to leave at any time. So, despite the ethical concerns here, there were some safeguards in place, just to throw that out straight away. The boys arrived on Monday morning at 10:30. Excitedly wandering around their new house and picking bedrooms, eating sweets and candy, even picking up water pistols in their nice new house. Oh god, who left the water pistols in the house? It's almost like they were destined to trash the place. This is incredibly difficult to see. I've only just become a homeowner myself, so to see kids running about with water guns and throwing shit everywhere really makes you sad. At least it's not my house. So yes, these sugar-hyped children with these toys of destruction certainly wouldn't end well. Despite getting to know each other early on, this freedom enabled them to basically just run riot and do whatever they wanted to. I mean, look at this place. I just tidied up! The freedom allowed them to start pushing the boundaries, even resulting in them painting and drawing on the walls of their nice new house. Bloody animals. Surprisingly, however, by the evening the boys realised that perhaps their antics were to their own detriment, as the mess they'd made was something that they would now have to live in for the next 4 days. And that is pretty much the theme here. There's the old saying that you make your bed, now lie in it. This is pretty literal for this situation. I think they realised that all of this excitement and freedom and just getting to explore the space, they might have just ruined the experience for themselves going forward. They even had to, heaven forbid, clean the house. Well, they tried, but when you put paint on the walls, there's only so much you can do when you're trying to scrub water on it. Yeah, guys, just don't even bother. Using vacuum cleaners and cleaning dishes and sponges to try and make the house a home, this place still looked like a crack den by the end of the day. However, that evening they decided that this chaos needed some order. Hence, the boys went ahead and elected a leader. This boy's name was George. He was the leader who took all the complaints from everybody about what had been happening in the day. And there was one clear correlation. Michael was the problem. Jesus, Michael, at least make a good first impression. It sounds like all these guys have it out for you. Maybe you should have been a little bit nicer. So, that evening they all went to bed after wrecking the house and basically having nothing nutritious to eat. They had basically had nothing but fizzy pop, sweets and candy the entire time. So they woke up that morning and realised, maybe we should eat something proper. Should we cook something? Well, despite the fact that the house was stocked with many healthy and nutritious foods, they'd basically torn through all of the junk food as quickly as possible. But I know what you're saying. Tank, these are kids. They can't cook. What do you expect them to do? Well, that's where you're wrong. Because these kids had a week-long cookery course before going in this house. So they do know how to cook, or they should at least, some basic meals. However, we'd seen no sign of this happening on the first day. However, as time went on, this did change, as I think the kids realised we need a good square meal in our bodies, so let's try cook something. And my God, I don't want to know what this cookery school was like, because some of these dishes were foul. I mean, these are kids cooking, I can't really fault them too much, but yeah, this was just a disaster waiting to happen. By lunchtime, they'd started cooking out of the sheer necessity, but cleaning was still lacklustre, with certain members of the group not pulling their own weight and very quickly being singled out because of this. One thing I will say, particularly if you're living with a bunch of lads, is you don't want to be the one that is singled out for being the one that doesn't pull their own weight. Everybody has to contribute. If you're not the one that does, things are going to turn on you very quickly. So that is hopefully a lesson that this kid learnt very fast. At the end of the second day, one of the boys was feeling homesick and wanted to call his parents. The cracks were starting to show. Generally, the boys pushed the boundaries as far as they could, and over the course of the next few days, as they realised that this house was getting worse and worse and worse, groups started to form, almost like tribes, and the boys would start turning on each other, where they would basically look to bully and harass the other side of the house as long as they could. This pushed some of them almost to breaking point. Thankfully, the experiment was only 5 days long, and by the morning of the last day, the boys' parents were there to collect them all, who, as a matter of fact, plot twist, had seen everything that had happened in the house beforehand. Ah, kids, even when the cameras are rolling, they just do what they want, because boys will be boys. And the parents did rightfully ask questions about why they didn't eat anything properly or why they just trashed everything, but then again, this is something new. This is freedom. Something which you want to take with both hands. Maybe not permanently. Maybe for a bunch of 10-year-olds, 5 days is enough. Maybe even 1 day is enough. So I'll let you be the judge of that. Whilst this ended in the way that you would expect, there was another experiment ran around about the same time under similar circumstances, where as a matter of fact, all of the boys were in fact girls, and a bunch of girls were in a house by themselves with complete freedom for 5 days. So, how did this turn out? Whilst I will still cut them some slack because they are kids, you have to compare the two and realise that boys and girls do work differently. Compared to the boys who basically just trashed everything they could, there was something quite different with the girls. They had the same house with the same freedoms, but instead of destroying things, they realised that the freedom would give them the opportunity to explore their creativity, do things they'd never done before, and really go about trying new things with peers their own age, such as roleplay, makeup, cooking, those sorts of things, to really push the boundaries on things that maybe they might have been a little bit too fearful to do before. Whilst the house wasn't completely clean because they are kids, at least they didn't destroy the joint just for the sheer hell of it, which is exactly what the boys did. So, I guess by the end of this, kids will be kids. The results were as exactly as you expected, but it is very interesting to watch nonetheless. If you guys enjoyed that video, here's another one just like it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.